Refrigerator led to food being thrown out at the restaurant of a James Beard Award winner.
5 on your side's Keely Arthur breaks down the problems at this Durham breakfast spot.
Look, I need to tell you something about your breakfast routine that's been eating at me for months. You know that moment when you walk into a Denny's at 6 a.m. and everything smells like bacon and coffee and you just trust it? That trust is going to evaporate in about 15 minutes. I've been digging into this stuff, really digging, talking to people who used to flip eggs at these places, people who quit because they couldn't stomach what they were serving anymore. We're about to go through 7 breakfast situations that are so fundamentally broken, you'll be packing granola bars for the rest of your life, and honestly, that might not be the worst idea. Starting with number 7, hotel breakfast buffets, because apparently nobody wants to talk about what a biological disaster zone these things actually are. Picture this. You're at a Holiday Inn somewhere outside Columbus, dragging yourself downstairs at the crack of dawn for that free continental breakfast they promised you. And there it is, the spread of scrambled eggs that have been sitting under a heat lamp since roughly the Mesozoic era. Those eggs should be at 135 degrees, according to the FDA, but I'm going to tell you right now, they're not even close. See, there's this thing called the danger zone in food safety, runs from 41 to 135 degrees Fahrenheit, and bacteria absolutely love it in there. They throw parties, they multiply like teenagers sharing TikToks. I watched this one morning at a hotel that shall remain nameless, where 17 different people used the same serving spoon for the eggs, the sausage, and the fruit salad, like some kind of demented breakfast remix nobody asked for. One guy literally grabbed a Danish with his bare hands, changed his mind, and put it back. Put it back. The worst part about hotel buffets is what happens overnight before you even get there. That yogurt parfait bar that looks so fresh and appealing at 6:30 in the morning. The night auditor set it up at 3 a.m. when he had nothing else to do, and it's been sitting there slowly warming up ever since. The milk in those little pitchers next to the cereal has been cycling through temperature changes every time someone opens the refrigerator door. And trust me, that door opens a lot. I talked to a woman who cleaned hotels for 15 years, and she told me the horror stories about finding yesterday's scrambled eggs mixed with today's batch because the manager didn't want to waste food, except wasting food is better than giving 30 people food poisoning. But apparently, that math doesn't work in the hotel business. The CDC says 70% of norovirus outbreaks in restaurants trace back to infected food workers or customers touching ready-to-eat food, and at a buffet, you're essentially French kissing every single person who walked through that breakfast room before you. Those tongs everyone's touching? The sneeze guard that one kid definitely sneezed under, not over. That waffle batter that's been sitting at room temperature since yesterday? It's a masterclass in how to spread gastrointestinal disasters, and we just accept it because, hey, free breakfast. Number 6 is going to hit different if you're a road warrior who depends on gas station breakfast to survive your commute. Those roller grills at 7-Eleven, the breakfast burritos slowly rotating under heat lamps that give everything an orange glow like a tired sunset. They're not just sad-looking, they're actively dangerous when nobody's following the rules. A guy who worked at a major gas station chain for 3 years told me something that still makes my skin crawl. Those breakfast sandwiches are supposed to be tossed after 4 hours. That's the law when you're using time as a public health control instead of temperature. But here's what actually happens at 5 a.m. when nobody's watching, and the night shift guy just wants to go home. Those egg and sausage croissants from yesterday? They get a fresh time sticker. That tornado thing that's been spinning since God knows when? Another few hours won't hurt, right? The machinery itself is part of the problem. Those roller grills that haven't been properly cleaned since the Bush administration, the first one, are basically just spreading whatever's been growing on them onto your breakfast sausage. The temperature controls are more suggestion than reality, fluctuating wildly depending on how many times the door's been opened, whether the air conditioning is working, and if anyone remembered to actually turn the thing on properly. I've seen thermal readings from these machines that would make a food safety inspector weep. 60 degrees here, 90 degrees there, Nothing even close to the safe zones they're supposed to maintain. California had a botulism outbreak in 2017 from gas station nacho cheese that killed someone, actually killed them. And while that wasn't breakfast food, it shows you exactly what happens when convenience stores treat food safety like a suggestion rather than, the thing that keeps people alive. Your breakfast sandwich is sitting there at maybe 70 degrees if you're lucky, which is basically a bacteria spa day, and the only warning you get is when your stomach starts doing backflips around lunchtime. The employees know this is happening, by the way. They're not eating that stuff themselves. One woman told me she'd rather go hungry through her entire shift than eat the breakfast items at the gas station where she worked, and when I asked her why, she just laughed and said, "I've seen things, man. I've seen things." All right, number 5, and this one's gonna sting if you're into the whole fresh-pressed juice scene. These juice bars and fancy cafes serving unpasteurized juice by the glass, acting like they're doing you a favor by keeping it raw and natural, when what they're really doing is playing pathogen roulette with your digestive system. The Odwalla incident in '96 should have been the end of unpasteurized juice in America. People got E. coli, there were kidney failures, a child died, but here we are almost 30 years later, and these places are still squeezing oranges right in front of you, charging $18 for what might be a cup of bacteria soup. The FDA makes packaged raw juice carry warning labels, huge ones that basically say, "This might make you seriously ill," but that same juice served in a glass at a bougie breakfast spot. No warning required, which is insane when you think about it for more than 2 seconds. What really gets me is the performance of it all, the theater of health they're putting on while potentially serving you pathogens with a smile. They've got the organic certification on the wall, the locally sourced produce displayed like trophies, the employee with the man bun who tells you about the farm where the apples came from, but when you ask if the juice is pasteurized, suddenly nobody knows anything. They know it's cold-pressed, which means absolutely nothing for food safety. They know it's organic, which also means nothing for killing bacteria. They know it costs more than a decent bottle of wine, but whether it's been treated to kill E. coli? Complete mystery. Half these juice bar employees can't even tell you if their stuff is pasteurized when you ask them directly. They just know it's cold-pressed or organic or blessed by yoga instructors or whatever marketing speak they've been taught. Meanwhile, the CDC is practically screaming at pregnant women and old people to avoid this stuff completely. But how can you avoid something when the person serving it doesn't even know what they're serving? Number 4 is personal for me because I grew up on bagels with lox every Sunday morning. It was like religion in my house. But those deli counters serving cold smoked fish and deli meats for breakfast are basically listeria breeding grounds. And I'm not being dramatic here. The CDC has the receipts. Listeria monocytogenes doesn't care that your lox is refrigerated. It actually prefers the cold, thrives in it, multiplies in conditions that would kill other bacteria. That beautiful salmon sitting in the case at your favorite bagel shop, if it's got listeria, keeping it cold is just giving it a comfortable home to raise a family. The CDC tracked multi-state listeria outbreaks from deli meats in 2024 alone, and their advice to pregnant women and anyone over 65 is basically, don't eat this unless you cook it until it's unrecognizable, which kind of defeats the purpose of lox, doesn't it? The cross-contamination at deli counters is its own special nightmare that nobody talks about. That slicer that just cut the roast beef, now it's cutting the turkey, now the ham, now back to the roast beef, spreading whatever each meat brought to the party across everything else. The gloves the deli worker is wearing, they've touched the register, the phone, their face, and now they're touching your food. One deli worker told me they were trained to wipe the slicer with the same rag all day, just adding a little sanitizer water when it started looking too gross, which is like trying to clean up an oil spill with a paper towel you keep reusing. But here's the kicker. Most delis don't even know this is a thing. They're not offering to heat your lox to 165 degrees. They're not warning elderly customers that their traditional Sunday breakfast could literally kill them. They're just slicing and serving, business as usual, while the CDC is basically having a panic attack in the background that nobody's listening to. 3 more to go, and honestly, they get worse from here. Number 3 is about those gorgeous pastries you see in bakery cases, the ones with cream filling that have been sitting at room temperature since the bakery opened at 5 a.m. Eclairs, cream puffs, Boston cream donuts, custard danishes, they look perfect under those lights, but what you can't see is the Staphylococcus aureus throwing an absolute rager inside that cream filling. Staph bacteria produces this toxin when it grows. And here's the truly messed up part. The toxin is heat stable, which means once it's there, you could nuke that eclair from orbit and the toxin would survive, ready to ruin your entire week. The bacteria gets in there from someone's hands usually, grows like crazy at room temperature, produces its toxin, and boom, you've got food poisoning that'll make you wish you'd just had toast. The timeline on these pastries is what really should terrify you. Baker comes in at 4 a.m., makes the pastries, fills them with cream at 5, they go in the case at 5:30, and then they sit there, all day, slowly becoming weapons of mass intestinal destruction. By noon, that cream filling has been at room temperature for 6.5 hours, which in bacteria time is like several generations, enough time for them to build cities, establish governments, and produce enough toxin to knock you flat. I've been in bakeries where the staff genuinely doesn't understand that cream-filled anything needs refrigeration. They think pastry equals shelf-stable. End of story. That Boston cream that's been sitting there looking pretty since dawn? The custard tart that's been in the case so long it's developed its own ecosystem? These are TCS foods, time temperature control for safety foods, but good luck explaining that to someone who's been doing it wrong for 20 years and hasn't killed anyone yet, or at least not that they know of. Number 2 should be obvious, but apparently it's not. Restaurants with inspection scores that would make a gas station bathroom look hygienic. I'm talking about places with scores in the 60s and 70s, places with critical violations stacked up like pancakes, and they're still serving breakfast every morning like nothing's wrong. I pulled 3 years of inspection data from major cities, and the patterns made me genuinely angry, like throwing things at walls angry. The same restaurants failing for the same violations over and over. No hand-washing stations working, cold food stored at 60 degrees, hot food at 90, raw eggs stored above ready-to-eat food, no consumer advisories for undercooked eggs, mice droppings near the food prep area. I could go on, but I think you get the picture. These aren't just numbers on a report, these are real violations that kill people. That hand-washing station that doesn't work? That means your cook just went from the bathroom to the eggs without washing their hands. The cold food at 60 degrees? That's potato salad growing bacteria faster than a petri dish in a science lab. The mouse droppings? Those carry hantavirus, salmonella, and about a dozen other things you don't want near your breakfast. But these places stay open because the system is broken, inspectors are overworked, and nobody follows up to make sure problems actually get fixed. There's this place in Brooklyn that had 17 critical violations in one inspection, 17, and they were open the next morning serving the breakfast special like they hadn't just been caught basically poisoning people. The inspector literally wrote, "Establishment poses an imminent health hazard," and somehow they talked their way into staying open, probably because closing a breakfast place means angry customers and lost revenue, and apparently that matters more than not giving people salmonella. And finally, number 1, the Mount Everest of breakfast disasters that millions of Americans face every single morning without even knowing they're at risk. Restaurants serving runny eggs from regular shell eggs with 0 safety measures and no warning whatsoever. Your over-easy eggs, your Benedict with that perfect golden yolk porn shot for Instagram, that soft scramble that Gordon Ramsay taught everyone to make. It's all a gamble if the restaurant isn't using pasteurized eggs or at least warning you about the risk. Salmonella enteritis can be inside the egg before the chicken even lays it. It's not about dirty shells or cracked eggs. The bacteria is literally inside what looks like a perfect egg. The FDA says restaurants have to post consumer advisories when they serve undercooked eggs, you've seen it. That little asterisk that warns about raw or undercooked foods. But I went to 47 breakfast places last month as a test, and only 12 had the required warning, which means 35 were just raw dogging it with food safety, pun unfortunately intended. The way restaurants actually handle eggs during the breakfast rush would make you never eat out again if you could see it happening. They pool eggs, meaning they crack dozens into a bucket that sits there at room temperature while orders come in. And if one egg has salmonella, congratulations, now they all do. It's democracy, but for bacteria. The same ladle goes from raw egg to raw again. The hollandaise for your Benedict has been sitting at room temp since 4 a.m. developing new forms of life, and nobody in that kitchen has checked a temperature on anything because the orders are coming too fast, and the owner hasn't hired enough people, and everyone's just trying to survive until the rush ends. The economics of breakfast service basically guarantee these problems will keep happening. Breakfast has the lowest profit margins of any meal service. The food costs more relative to what people will pay. The labor has to come in earlier, which means paying more, and customers expect everything to be fast and cheap. So corners get cut, temperatures don't get checked, old food gets mixed with new food, and everyone just hopes nobody gets sick enough to sue. One restaurant owner actually told me, off the record, that they factor potential food poisoning settlements into their budget like it's just another operating cost, which should tell you everything about how seriously they take your health. Former cooks have told me stories that sound like kitchen nightmares, but worse because it's not for TV, it's just Tuesday. One guy said they were trained to take yesterday's pooled eggs, add fresh eggs to refresh them, and keep going. Another said the owner specifically told them not to waste time checking temperatures because eggs cook fast enough that it doesn't matter. A third told me about finding a container of hollandaise that had been forgotten behind the coffee machine for 2 days, and the chef just stirred it up and used it because it looked fine. The really infuriating part about all of this is that none of these problems are hard to fix if anyone actually gave a damn. Use pasteurized eggs for runny preparations, keep hot food hot and cold food cold, train your staff, post the required warnings, throw food out when it's been sitting too long, wash your hands. I mean, come on, this is not complicated stuff. But the breakfast industry has decided that your health is an acceptable casualty in the war for profit margins and speed of service. Every single former employee I talked to said the same thing about breakfast service. It's pure chaos, understaffed, undertrained, and everybody's cutting corners just to keep up. The microwave is doing more cooking than the grill. Yesterday's food becomes today's special, and nobody has time to care about temperatures or time limits, or whether that cream puff has been sitting out long enough to develop consciousness. We've somehow accepted that breakfast, the most important meal of the day according to every nutritionist who's ever lived, can be an absolute disaster of food safety, and that's just the price we pay for convenience. We wouldn't accept this garbage at dinner. If a steakhouse stored meat at room temperature or served cream sauces that had been sitting out all day, they'd be shut down faster than you can say E. coli. But at breakfast, anything goes apparently. The thing is, safe breakfast exists if you know where to look and what questions to ask, but you have to be willing to be that person who asks if the eggs are pasteurized, who checks if the juice bar knows what pasteurization even means, who walks out when the inspection score is posted and it's a 62. You have to be willing to look at that beautiful Eggs Benedict and ask yourself if a runny yolk is worth potential food poisoning, and sometimes the answer is going to be no, and that's okay. I get that this is a lot to process, that I might have just ruined breakfast for you forever, but that's kind of the point. These 7 situations aren't edge cases or rare occurrences. They're happening every single morning in thousands of restaurants across America, and we just keep showing up, keep ordering, keep trusting an industry that has proven repeatedly it doesn't deserve that trust. Tomorrow morning, when you're thinking about breakfast, when you're standing in front of that hotel buffet that's been sitting out since dawn, or reaching for that gas station sandwich that's older than some of the music on the radio, or ordering those gorgeous runny eggs that might be carrying invisible passengers, Remember this conversation. Your health is worth more than convenience, more than tradition, more than that Instagram shot of the perfect brunch spread. And the sooner we all start acting like it, the sooner the breakfast industry might actually start giving a damn about not poisoning us every morning.